Hare Krishna. Thank you for making it so far. We are almost at the end of chapter 18. Very, very important section is going to come up today. One of the sections that I refer to very often is the 2.5 verses. So that's the 2.5 verses we will talk about today. And also we will talk about Brahman realization, and we will see how far we go to Paramatma realization and so on. Before we start, let us recite the Mangalacharan prayers. Om Ajnanatimirandhasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yutah Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine He Krishna Karuna Sindho Deenabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shrivas Adi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Rama
Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Okay, thank you for being here, everyone. So, like we said, we are slowly getting closer to the last few verses of the 18th chapter. So let me share my screen. Okay. Hopefully you can see the... Okay, thank you. Okay, so last time I think we covered up to (18.49). So we will start with 18.50. So up until now, Lord Shri Krishna has described in this 18th chapter the difference between tyaga and sannyasa. Then he gave a lot of, there was also the section which described the 5 factors of action. And then there was a lot of jnana about mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. And finally, the Lord described the varnashrama system as to how one can perform their duties in the various ashramas, but still attain perfection while performing their duties. So all these topics were covered. It is a summary of all the topics of Bhagavad Gita so far, but mainly what was covered was the Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga section. And in one verse, just one verse, I mean, it is scattered through other verses as well, but in one verse, Lord Krishna covers Dhyana Yoga as well, which is 18.49. So there Lord Krishna covers Dhyana Yoga as well. So all these 3 have been covered. Okay, in a summary format so far. Now, Lord Krishna speaks about so all these processes, and when it is karma yoga, it is nishkama karma yoga. All these processes lead to spiritual destination. So that is the destination that Lord Krishna is leading towards. And now in the next three verses, 18.51 to 53, what Lord Krishna will be describing here is the final limit of material existence. Okay, that is what is being described in this verse 18.50. And Lord Krishna will say, one second. नहीं. Yeah. So the final limit of material existence will be described in this 18.50, and the details will be described here. So Lord Krishna will simply say that now hear from me this final limit of material existence. So the translation is, or the Sanskrit, we will read the Sanskrit as well. Siddhim prapto yatha brahma tathapnoti nibodha me samasenaiva kaunteya nishtha jnanasya yapara. Thank you. So, O son of Kunti, learn from me how one who has achieved this perfection can attain to the supreme perfectional stage Brahman, the stage of highest knowledge, by acting in the way that I shall now summarize. So Lord Krishna is going to describe this final limit, and he will describe that in these verses. The main thing that will be described by Lord Krishna is that when all good and bad karma is gone. So there is no concept of any good karma or bad karma. It is a karma at this point. No vikarma or sukarma. All vidya and avidya is also gone. So all kind of knowledge, so you can see here, there is a correlation with karma yoga, jnana yoga. I will describe the difference, but at a material level, all good and bad, all vidya and avidya, everything that is there is gone, and all mode of goodness, mode of passion, mode of ignorance is gone. They are all gone. So this stage, when all these are gone, is nothing but the guna atita stage, which we learned in chapter number 14, if you remember. The guna atita, one transcends the modes, and one experiences the presence of Brahman at this point. So that is the stage at which one is. Okay, and it is so one is still in the material existence, but he is completely experiencing that the presence of Brahman. So this term that I want to describe here, I just want to clarify, is that Lord Krishna will use is Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. So that is what you will see in 18.53. Okay, so kalpate, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate means one becomes, kalpate means eligible. So one is completely, or we can say fully eligible for Brahman realization. Okay, and this is still at a material level. One is on the material level. Then there is the Brahma Bhuta stage. And here one is actually self-realized or the Brahman realized. And this is the spiritual level. And this is described in 18.54. So this is described in 18 point, we can say that it's described in 18.51 to 53. But this Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate will come in 18.53 and Brahma Bhuta will come in 18.54. So this is that sort of, crossover. This is that boundary. And one crosses over from the material level to the spiritual level. In 18.53 to 54, one goes to the spiritual level when one gives up all notion of material existence. So we will see. So one is already at this level, 51 to 53, and we will see the discussion of 51 to 53. Okay. So I can open this up, no problem. So is that clear? So what we have discussed so far is what Lord Krishna is going to describe in the 51 to 53 verse. And he is simply giving a pointer to it in 18.50. And he says, I will describe it in summary form. Samasena aiva kaunteya. Nishtha jnanasya ya para. So whatever is beyond jnana, beyond all notion of jnana, that I will now describe to you, that stage in summary form. So let us see what is that summary form of that stage. So now we see 18.51 to 18.53. We can call this as the Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. That stage, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate stage, or we can call it as the guna atita stage. But these are both still at a, there is very fine difference between being at a material level and at a spiritual level. It's exactly the properties are still the same. One is in the material world before giving up his body, but he is completely in the spiritual realm. And then after giving up the body, one becomes Brahman realized. So one is in the spiritual level, material level and spiritual level. It's only the situation of the person that is material or spiritual, but his consciousness is completely spiritual or guna atita stage. And therefore, in that spiritual consciousness, even though he is in the material world, he is eligible for Brahman realization. Another name for this is the jivan mukta. And we have done this discussion, if you remember, way back in chapter 5. And we recently also covered it briefly in our fast-paced course, which we just started, where we completed chapter 5. So if you are, I understand all this is very technical. Try to get the essence of it for our practical application. And that practical application is going to come in very soon in the 2.5 verses that I just spoke about. So this is, much of this is a little bit of theory. And we covered it. It's a little hard to grasp. I have read Bhagavad Gita several times. Every time I read these sections, I also have to remember what I have read previous time in other chapters. So there is definitely some complexity involved here. Okay, So 18.51 to 53. So these verses are very beautiful. These describe a person in this Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate stage, or a guna atita stage, or a jivan mukta stage. Okay. So we will go line by line. 18.51. So buddhaya vishuddhaya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayam tyaktva ragadveshi vyudasya cha. So let's go through this. Buddhaya vishuddhaya yukto. So one means that buddhaya vishuddhaya yukto. So this keeps changing. So I will just write up here. So A, B, C, D, four sort of dividing each verse into four parts, or which is known as four padas. A verse is composed of four padas. Pad means like a foot. So it's like each verse, you walk 4 steps and then you complete a verse. So that's why it's called a pada. So there are 4 padas, means 4 what we call as quartlets. Okay. So A, B, C, D, we denote it like that. Buddhaya vishuddhaya yukto. So when the buddhi becomes shuddha, okay. Many of you understand the Indian or the Sanskrit language a little bit. So when intelligence is completely purified, buddhaya vishuddhaya. Okay. Then B, dhritya atmanam niyamya cha. So atmanam here refers to the mind, refer to chapter 6. Similar line was there. So mind is completely controlled. Okay. Niyamya cha. Niyamya means, niyam means regulation. So it is not going anywhere. It is regulated. It is where we want it to be. So that is, mind is controlled. Then shabdadin vishayam tyaktva. So shabda adi. Adi means etc. Shabda means sound. So all these sense objects, sound, sight, touch, feeling, whatever, smell, all those sensory objects, vishayams, all these sensory objects, tyaktva means to give up. So giving up all sense objects. And raga dvesho vyudasya cha. No raga and no dvesha. Raga dvesha means no attachments and no hatred.
Likes and dislikes.
Likes and dislikes, yes. So no attachments, no hatred towards anything or anyone. So when one is in this stage, so 4 things have been described, and this is just a summary. In 18.50, Lord Krishna had said, this is just summary, samasenaiva. So in a summary form, Lord Krishna is describing the characteristics, once again, of a Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate person, of a guna atita person, of a jivan mukta person. He may be in the material world, but his consciousness is completely purified, spiritualized. Okay. Now 18.52. Vivikta sevi lagvashi yat vakakaya manasaha dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashritaha. So Vivikta sevi means living in a very, very minimal way. So different acharyas describe it differently. Living in a holy place or in a isolated place. Okay. And eating lagvashi, eating minimally, not like hogging all the puris and pakoras, eating minimally just to stay alive. Lagvashi. Vivikta sevi lagvashi. Next is yat vakakaya manasaha. So, and completely controlled What? What have you completely controlled? Who can tell? What is the acronym I like to use here? Vak
Vani.
BMW,
Speak.
BMW.
BMW. Very nice. That means you are attending my classes nicely. BMW. Body, mind, and words. Okay. Vak means words. Kaya means body. Manasaha means mind. So BMW. Thank you. So completely controlling the body, mind, and words. Dhyana yoga paro nityam. So completely absorbed in dhyana yoga. Okay. And finally, vairagyam samupashritaha. So completely vairagyam samupashritaha means that completely detached from everything material. That is vairagya. And samupashritaha means and taking shelter of spiritual. So vairagya and taking shelter of spiritual or taking shelter of this dhyana yoga. So vairagyam completely detached from everything material. So that is 18.52. 18.53. Giving up. That's how we will do the anvaya. Giving up. There is a word in the C portion, vimuchya. That is giving up, vimuchya. Giving up what all? So in A there is what? So let's read this verse. Ahankaaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmamah shanto Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. So this is the stage of Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, means eligibility for Brahma Bhuya. Okay. So Brahma Bhuyaya. Bhuyaya means aya in Sanskrit means for someone. Ramaya. Ramaya means for Ram. So Brahma Bhuyaya means one becomes eligible for Brahman. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. One becomes eligible for Brahman. So giving up what all? What all items you have to, one gives up at this stage? Ahankaaram balam darpam. So ahankar, false ego. Balam, false strength, or the feeling that I am the possessor of strength, that attachment to that possession of strength. And you will see the word nirmamam come later. Nirmama means, nirmam applies to all these things, that even I may have it, I don't consider it mine. Nirmama. Mama means mine. Nir means no, not mine. So no ahankar, no balam darpam means no show of any objects of, or no show of any pride, we will just say. Okay. Kama krodha parigraham. So kamam krodham, lust, anger, and parigraham means no worldly shelters. Parigraha, graha means what? House, isn't it? Parigraha means someone else's house. So everything that is worldly is not belonging to the soul. The soul is in a foreign land. In this material world, the material world is a foreign territory for the soul. So everything in the material world is parigraha. It's not swagraha. It's not one's own house. It is someone else's house. So no worldly shelters, or we can say no worldly association. So kamam krodham parigraham vimuchya nirmama shanto. So one becomes, so by giving up all this, one becomes completely peaceful and has no feeling of ownership, nirmama, of the above. Of all these above things, false ego, false strength, pride, lust, anger, worldly shelters, mainly worldly shelters. I have this, I have that. Okay. Such a person, Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate, such a person is eligible for Brahman realization. Which means Brahman realization means to cross over. He has the visa to go from one country to another country, right? You can cross the border. So we can say cross the boundary or the border from material to, he can cross over into spiritual, right? We showed this diagram here, right? Boundary from material level to spiritual level. That is from Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate to Brahma Bhuta stage. Bhuta Aya for Brahma Bhuta. So that is known as Brahma Bhuyaya. Brahma Bhuta means you are there. Bhuyaya means you are going to be there. Okay. So that is 18.53. So these are the characteristics in very simple terms or very summary terms, how a completely spiritual consciousness, a person with complete spiritual consciousness looks like, or how he behaves, how he is. So you can look at all these terms and all this description that Lord Krishna has given. Okay. 18.51, 52, and 53. So quickly read Srila Prabhupada's translation. One sec. Yeah. 1 second.
What is the difference between ahankaaram and darpam?
This we had covered in chapter 16.
Yes, but I'm missing again. Balam, ahankaaram and darpam, I couldn't understand fully.
Yeah, ahankar means that when one has something and he's proud about it. Darpam means a false pride. False pride means that ahankar is also false ego. False ego means at that level, false ego means it's material level. That's why it is false. True ego means that I'm a devotee of Bhagwan. So that is true ego. But false ego means I have so much money. I have so many other things. I'm intelligent. I'm beautiful, whatever. Darpam means you don't have it, but you have a show of it. So, in Hindi we say, ding marna. So you just, what do you say? You have little bit, but you think you have a lot. So you pretend as if, like Srila Prabhupada says in somewhere that even a beggar is very proud of his penny. So even though he may just have a penny, he's very proud. So, like that.
Thank you.
Okay. Now 18.54. So, okay, we were going to read Srila Prabhupada's translation. Being purified by his intelligence and controlling the mind with determination, giving up the objects of sense gratification, being freed from attachment and hatred, one who lives in a secluded place, Vivikta Sevi, that is, who eats little, Laghvashi, who controls his body, mind, and power of speech, BMW, who is always in trance and who is detached, free from false ego, false strength, false pride, that is the ahankaaram, balam, darpam, lust, anger, and acceptance of material things, this is the parigraha, free from false proprietorship, nirmama, and peaceful. Such a person is certainly elevated to the position of self-realization. So he's elevated, or he's eligible to be elevated. If you see the word-to-word translation of Srila Prabhupada, you will see that Srila Prabhupada is saying Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate. In Kalpate, he's saying the word-to-word translation is qualified. So he is qualified for that level, or he's elevated to that level. So he's almost at the borderline. Now, one more step and he is inside the border. That is 18.54. So 18.54 is describing the Brahman realized stage of a soul. So obviously we say of a soul because at this point there is no body. Body has been left behind in the material world. In the spiritual world, there is no material body. And that was said in the previous verse itself, that yat vak kaya manasaha. So everything has been left behind. Vak kaya manasaha. Mind is also part of the material body. So mind, body, everything is left behind. And the soul enters into this Brahman realized stage. So very important verse. Brahma Bhutah prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samah sarveshu bhuteshu mad bhaktim labhate param. So this verse is not only describing this Brahman realized stage of a soul, but something more important. So we will let's focus on these things. So first, I want to give the plain vanilla understanding of this verse, that in this stage, Brahma Bhuta, so 18.54a, in this Brahma Bhuta stage, one is Prasannatma. So this is in this stage of Brahma Bhuta, Prasannatma, Brahma Bhuta stage. One is very happy. Prasannatma, one is very happy, completely, very, or I shouldn't say very, completely. Now this happiness is a spiritual happiness. It is not a material happiness that we experience through our mind. There is no mind. Mind is left behind in the material world. There is no mind. Only the thing that is existing is the soul. So the soul experiences the happiness that the soul experiences at a spiritual level. So this is spiritual happiness. It is not the worldly happiness that we experience. That is mostly 99.99999% people, whatever happiness they may think they are experiencing when a mother sees this baby, and hugs the baby after coming back from office. One sec, let me उसको बता दो class में. So mother, very pure level of love between mother and child, for example, even that 99.9999% is at the level of the mind. Okay, that is also not at the level of the soul. Obviously, I cannot describe it from personal experience because I have no experience of this level of prasannatma at the soul level. Otherwise, I would not be sitting here and giving class. I would be already, in spiritual realm. So that happiness is nothing like the material happiness. It is spiritual happiness. That's what I want to explain. Prasannatma means it's not anything material. It's fully spiritual, 100% spiritual. So Brahma Bhuta stage, he experiences this extreme happiness, bliss, spiritual bliss. That is A. Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. Na shochati, na kankshati. So one has no desires, kankshati, or lamentations. Okay, now this is the difference. There is happiness. Here, it's not described that there is no sukha dukkha. There is sukha, spiritual sukha or prasannata is there. So the soul experiences the happiness. Whereas in the material level, in the Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate stage, there is no happiness or distress. Both are not there. Because there one is still in the material plane. So material happiness and lamentation are completely gone. And what is being described here is that there at the spiritual level, there is no lamentation and there are no desires. In the spiritual world, lamentation itself doesn't exist. Okay. Na shochati, na kankshati. And because there is no desire which cannot be met, everything in the spiritual world, whatever desire is there, there are spiritual desires, they are automatically met. So there is no lamentation. Why is there lamentation? You want something and you don't get it. Isn't that the one and number one source of lamentation? Why do you lament? You wanted something and you didn't get it, or you got it and it got taken away. Whatever. Now you don't have it, and you lament. So that does not exist in the spiritual world, because the desires are always fulfilled, and those desires are always spiritual in nature. So one has no other desires apart from spiritual desires, and there is no lamentation because they are always fulfilled. See, samaha sarveshu bhuteshu. One is equally disposed, or equally disposed to all living entities. And then what happens? This is the important part. Mad bhaktim labhate param. One attains my bhakti. Labhate. Labhate means to obtain. Labhate param. Mad bhaktim. My mad bhaktim. My topmost bhakti. So labhate mad bhaktim labhate param. My topmost bhakti one obtains. So how do we understand this part? So I just want to say something. I don't want to write a lot. But when one reaches the Brahman realization, it is described that there has to be a little amount of what is known as bhakti rasa. Very tiny, at least, it can be definitely more, but at least very tiny amount of bhakti rasa, of some bhakti. It could be hidden. It may be completely hidden. But it has to be there for one to even get Brahman realization. With zero bhakti, completely zero, no bhakti at all, simply on the basis of jnana, karma, jnana or dhyana, one can come to the Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate stage. But one cannot go to the spiritual world, to the spiritual destination. For that, some bhakti has to be there, even if it is completely hidden, one may not realize. And typically this type of very tiny bhakti comes through the mercy of a devotee. One may come in contact with a pure devotee. One may not know he is a pure devotee, but one may come in contact. One may eat some prasad. One may do something like that, where one does not realize, I have done it. He does it unknowingly. This is known as agyata sukriti of a shuddha bhakta, of a pure devotee. And that sows the seed of that bhakti ras in one's heart. And that is essential for going into the spiritual destination. So then what happens? That when one reaches the spiritual destination, due to the strength of his jnana or dhyana yoga, then all of that jnana, dhyana is eliminated. So it's like Vishwanatha Chakravarthy Thakura describes, like there is a soul within the body, isn't it? When death occurs, or when one goes to the spiritual destination, the body is gone. Only the soul remains. Or another example that is described is that, you have rice and you have some other particle in it. When you remove all the rice in a filter, let's say through a filter, then all that remains in that channi, or what you call in that sieve, is that bigger particle. So everything else falls off. Only that big particle remains. So then it becomes uncovered is the point. Okay. So when like that, one goes to the spiritual world, all the jnana, all the karma, everything falls behind. That small amount of bhakti remains, and that fructifies. that becomes bigger. It's like the pure form of dry wood. One spark and it ignites. So, but that bhakti is resident within the soul. That bhakti rasa is resident within the soul of that living entity. And that is what fructifies. That is what blossoms. That is what becomes manifest. That is what is the meaning of mad bhaktim labhate param. And this happens immediately. So immediate blossoming of the tiny resident bhakti ras within the soul occurs. Immediate blossoming of this tiny resident amount of bhakti ras within the soul occurs. That is the meaning of D, mad bhaktim labhate param. Okay. So definitely one attains bhakti. Now, how much one progresses further from this Brahman stage? One can stay at the Brahman stage. So as a individual soul, okay, one can stay at the Brahman stage, or one can progress further into spiritual planets, the Vaikuntha planets. Okay, so this one is known as sayujya mukti. And then here there are 4 types: samipya, salokya, I'm not going to go into the details, sarishti, and 5th one is sarupya. Okay, so samipya means staying close to the Lord. Salokya means staying in the same planet as the Lord. Sarishti means getting the same opulences as the Lord. And sarupya means having a form same or similar to the Lord. So all these happen in various Vaikuntha planets. As you can imagine, samipya, salokya are very obvious in the same planet or near to the Lord. Sarupya and sarishti are also Vaikuntha. One goes to the spiritual planets. And the 5th one is sayujya mukti, where one stays in the Brahman level as a individual soul. Srila Prabhupada describes an analogy here in the purport of next verse, 18.55. It's like a fish in the ocean. The fish may go from the river into the ocean, but the fish still remains a fish. It remains individual. The impersonalists, they describe it as the water entering from the river into the ocean, then it is mixed with the ocean. When you are in the ocean, do you know which water is the river water, which water is the ocean water? Can you differentiate? You cannot, right? It gets mixed. That is the impersonalist's description. Srila Prabhupada says, no, we shouldn't. That's the wrong understanding. If you have to take an analogy, take it as if there is a fish in the river, and when the fish enters the ocean, you can still identify the fish, isn't it? So in the same way, the ocean is like the Brahman, and the fish is like the living entity, and the river is like the material world. So when the fish is going from material world to spiritual world, it still is a individual living entity, but it stays in the ocean. It doesn't go to some other, let us say, some other island, Vaikuntha island, as an example. So that is sayujya mukti. Okay. So this, coming back here, this bhakti rasa is there, and this tiny amount of bhakti rasa, even unknown sometimes, leads one to the stage of liberation or mukti. And if it is only hidden, one did not himself or herself do bhakti yoga, one did jnana yoga or dhyana yoga, and still got mukti due to some agyata, unknown bhakti. How many lifetimes that process takes? One lifetime, is it possible? No. Many lifetimes it takes. Where it is said in Bhagavad Gita, who can tell me? Which verses? Which verses say that this process of going through the jnana or dhyana take many, many lifetimes, and some bhakti is needed? You don't remember? So there is very famous verse 7.19, which says that bahunam janmanamante jnanavan mam prapadyate vasudevah sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. So one needs that vasudevah sarvamiti. That is the aspect of bhakti, to understand that Vasudeva is something. I have explained this in different examples, like a staircase. So one has gone through the staircase and your goal is to go to the 100th floor. But you realize that the staircase ends at the 99th floor. There is no staircase going to 100th floor. You can take elevator from first floor all the way to 100, yes. So no need to go through this strenuous process of staircase. But still, if you went, you cannot reach the 100th floor without taking the elevator. At least you have to take the elevator from 99 to 100. At least that one floor you have to take elevator. At least. And going from 1 to 99 will take bahunam janmanamante. So after bahunam janmanamante, after the end of many lifetimes, Jnanvan, all these jnanis and yogis, mam prapadyate, they surrender to me. They say, finally, I thought I will do it at my own level. I will climb the stairs. But, oh, too bad. The stairs don't go till 100 level. I have to take the shelter of elevator. So then one says, okay, let's take shelter of elevator. So that is mam prapadyate. They submit or they surrender to the elevator, and then they go to the spiritual world. Another verse for that is 6.45, which we will not go through, but there are two verses which says after many lifetimes. So 7.19 and 6.45. Okay. So that is the description of 18.54. That one, how one attains the spiritual destination. With a little bit, some minimal amount of bhakti has to be there. Now 18.55. So what is 18.55 describing? 18.55 is describing that what does bhakti give? Now one has to have that bhakti, some bhakti to reach the spiritual destination. Then one can progress further. This is a question that many people ask. After this Brahman realization, this sayujya mukti, can I go to samipya, salokya, sarishti? Yes, you can. Definitely you can. From Brahman stage, you can go further. No problem. That is possible. Our Shastras say that. So what happens in that stage? Mad bhaktim labhate param. That is 18.54. One gets my bhakti. Through that bhakti, what happens? Now this can happen even before also one who is a bhakta. But here we are talking about somebody who has not followed the path of bhakti. through some unknown bhakti, he got mukti. Then also he can perform bhakti and know Bhagavan, know Krishna in essence, tattva. Or one could do it before also, like you all are doing right now. Reading Bhagavad Gita and knowing about Krishna is knowing, trying to know Krishna. So this reading Bhagavad Gita is not a aspect of jnana or dhyana. It is an act of bhakti. You are also attending, many of you, Srimad Bhagavatam classes. You are reading Bhagavatam. You are doing all these actions of bhakti. Some of you or many of you are doing your japa, your shravana, kirtana. All these things are acts of bhakti. So either you do it now or after attaining sayujya mukti, you have to do it. Either way, to know Krishna, you have to do bhakti. So that is the point of 18.55. To know Krishna in essence, tattva, one must, or we can say has to, engage in Bhakti Yoga. So let us read the verse. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tattvataha yato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tad anantaram. Okay. So this verse shows also that you can go from sayujya to the samipya, salokya, sarishti, sarupya, mukti, the 4 types of other muktis. So let us see. So 18 point, there is a sequence. 18.54 was describing one gets the bhakti, labhate, mad bhaktim labhate. Somehow or the other one has come to the Brahma Bhuta stage. Now he labhate mad bhaktim, he gets my bhakti. Then what does Lord Krishna say? Bhaktya mam abhijanati. That by that bhakti that one gets, either in the sayujya stage or before, it could be done before also. Bhaktya mam abhijanati. So by that bhakti, mam abhijanati, I can be abhijanati. You can say janana, jante hain. So one can know me. How one can know you? Yavan yash cha asmi tattvataha, as I am in essence. Yavan yash cha asmi, as I am. Yash cha asmi, as I am. Tattvataha, in essence. So to know Krishna in essence, that is what is being said here. To know Krishna in essence, one has to engage in Bhakti Yoga, or one has to do Bhakti. One does that after getting Sayujya Mukti, because it is fructified, that hidden Bhakti little bit is fructified. So, and then what happens? Tato mam tattvato gyatva. Then, tato means then. Then tato mam tattvato gyatva. Then after having gained that knowledge of me in tattva, after coming to know who I am in tattva, tato mam, then mam tattvato gyatva, knowing me in a sense, vishate tadanantaram, he enters into my planets. Tad anantaram. Vishate means to enter. Tad anantaram, he enters. Okay. So to gain entry into these realms, you must have bhakti. Either you can have that before your sayujya mukti, in which case you will skip the sayujya stage. You don't have to come to the 99th floor. You can enter the elevator on first floor, you will end up in the 100th floor directly. Somebody will ask you, did you see what was there in 99th floor? You will say, no, I don't know. I just entered on first floor and directly 100th floor. I don't know. So it is quite possible that one directly goes to the Vaikuntha planets. In Srimad Bhagavatam, there are so many examples of devotees who go to the Vaikuntha planets. In fact, some of the demons upon whom Lord Krishna is very merciful, like Putana, she became a mother in mother of Bhagavan, because she offered milk to Bhagavan, even though it was poisoned milk. Still, she offered some milk. Lord Krishna is so kind. Even if you give him poisoned milk, he will treat you like a mother, because mother gives milk. So because she gave poisoned milk to Bhagwan Krishna, he gave her the position of a mother in the spiritual world. Most of the demons get sayujya mukti. Okay, they don't get the highest level. As you can see, even in mukti, this is the lower level of mukti. And these are the higher level of mukti. So the demons, when they get killed by the hands of the Lord, they get liberated, no doubt. But they mostly get this. Some of them get this. Devotees, most of the devotees or all the devotees come here. Some of the jnanis and dhyanis, they may come to sayujya mukti, and then they may progress further. Okay, so this whole concept is described here. The last two lines are also very important, that at the sayujya mukti stage, one obtains the knowledge of Krishna. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yascha asmi tatvatah. So first they stay in the sayujya stage, obtain, I'm just giving, there's no time concept in spiritual world, okay, but I'm just making it simple. That's how my level of understanding also is. It's not that I know much more. So I'm explaining you whatever I know. So once, like we can say, one stays at the sayujya stage, attains knowledge about Krishna in essence due to his bhakti, which has been now fully fructified. And when one does that, tato, then what happens? After obtaining that knowledge, one goes higher. Vishate tad anantaram. One enters into the spiritual kingdom. So that is the translation. One can understand me as I am, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, only by devotional service. Those are the first two lines. Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yascha asmi tatvatah. And when one is in full consciousness of me by such devotion, tato mam tatvato gyatva, he can enter into the kingdom of God. Vishate tad anantaram. Okay, he enters into the Vaikuntha Planets, which is over here. Are you all following? Somebody can say, nod your head. All right, very nice. Okay, not too complicated, right? At least whatever I am explaining, you are following, right? Now, obviously, there is more, this is very deep stuff. It's not like I can explain you in very simple terms, but, like a father explains, to a small child, it may be different elementary level. If the, like a professor may explain at a much deeper level to a PhD student. But if that same professor goes home and his elementary school child asks him, he may explain it. It won't be wrong. He won't tell any lies, but he will bring it down, and all the details may not be there, but at least some elementary level, he can make the child understand. I am that kind of professor who doesn't know the PhD level either. I only know the elementary level, which I am giving you. Okay, so I hope you are happy with that. Okay, so that is 18.55. Now comes very, very beautiful section. This is the most famous, which I keep calling the 2.5 verse section. So 18.56, 57, and 58.5. So these are our 2.5 verses. So what is this describing? This is describing, so far, at least what we have read in entire 18th chapter, almost all of 18th chapter, from verse number 1 till verse number 55. Of course, 55 is describing a Shuddha Bhakta, pure devotee, because he engages in bhakti to know Bhagwan in tattva. Okay. So, but otherwise, everything is described for a karma yogi, jnana yogi, dhyana yogi, and how he attains moksha or mukti or sayujya mukti. So that is what has been described. Now, what Lord Krishna is describing is the activities, or you can say his consciousness of a devotee in the material world. Okay. And we will see the activities and the consciousness, and Lord will show the result. And Lord will say that his activities and consciousness activities slash consciousness and result is the same as for a karma yogi, jnana yogi, and dhyana yogi. I'm just abbreviating KY, JY, DY. Okay. Result is the same. So now in these 2.5 verses, Lord Krishna is describing pure devotee. How pure devotee acts, who does not need to do all this jnana, karma, everything. There is this beautiful verse, jnana karmadi anavritam, by Sri Rupa Goswami. That is Shuddha Bhakti. So what are the activities of a pure devotee while he is in the material world, and how he acts, and then he attains the same result? So that is what Lord Krishna is going to show in this 2.5 verses. Okay. So very nice, in brief, Lord Krishna is going to describe the process of Krishna consciousness in these 2.5 verses. So 18.56, the first one. Now, one thing I just want to show, this is also a pure or a Shuddha Bhakta, which is also known as a Kevala Bhakta. Activities of or of a mixed Bhakta also. Mixed means somebody who is not Shuddha Bhakta, but mixed with some jnana, maybe. So, or some dhyana. So it is a mixed Bhakta, not a Shuddha Bhakta. He may be a mixed Bhakta, but to the degree his consciousness is like this, to that degree he will get the result. He may take, a mixed devotee may take some few lifetimes or some more time to become a Shuddha Bhakta, and then a Shuddha Bhakta goes to the spiritual planets, the Vaikuntha planets. But this process is much, much faster and is the recommended process by Lord Shree Krishna. And Lord Krishna will contrast that. He will contrast 18.56, 18.57, 18.58 and a half. He will contrast this with next 2.5 verses, 18.58 and second half, 18.59 and 18.60. Here, this is a bhakta. Bhakta means what? Depends on Lord. There is a degree of dependence, okay? There is degree. But these next 2.5 verses are, I will do everything. I don't need God. And what happens to that person? One who is fully in this consciousness, I will do everything on my own. I don't need any bhakti rasa, no even tinge of bhakti. He stays in the material world. Exactly, Lord Krishna will say, you will stay in the material world. You can go very high in the material world, but you cannot cross. To cross, you need this element, some little element of bhakta. But the more you have, the more quickly you can go into the spiritual world. Are you following? Okay. So please try to understand this carefully. So 18.56. Very beautiful 2.5 verses. Sarva karmani api sada kurvano madvyapashrayah mad prasadat avapnoti shashwatam padam avyayam. So what are the points that Lord Krishna is making here? Sarva karmani api sada. Sada means always. So always, sarva karmani api, do all your duty or all your activities, or we can say duties. How you have to do? Kurvano, do it how? Mad vyap ashraya. Mad vyap ashraya means under my shelter. Under my ashraya. Mad is me or my, under my shelter. Ashraya means shelter. So do it under my shelter. That is point number. We can put it as a, there are 5 things Lord Krishna will describe. So A. So next line. So this was A comma B. The pada was A comma B. Then C pada is mat prasadat avapnoti. What does he get? Whatever he gets, the next line is shashwatam padam avyayam. So he gets the, what does he get? The shashwatam. Ashashwat means what? Temporary. So shashwat means what? The permanent, right? Eternal. So what is the eternal? Padam. Padam means destination, right? So what is the eternal destination? The spiritual destination. That is eternal. Material destination is temporary, right? So he gets the eternal, and there is one more, avyayam. Avyayam means spiritual destination. And how does he get it? How does he get it? By his own strength? How does he get it? Where it is written in this verse? That what is the cause of his getting this destination? Who can tell me? Are you all reading the book as we are discussing, or you're just doing something else? What is the cause? It's right there.
Who depends upon the Lord?
No, that is his. He is depending, so he has done that. But his
Yes.
simply his dependence does not lead to his destination. There is something else. There is a missing step. He depends and he gets the destination. There is something in the middle. What happens?
Doing all the activities, but depends upon the Lord.
So you're describing step 1 and destination is the step 3. There is a
Yes.
middle step and there is a word there. You can, if you read the Sanskrit, you will find the word.
Under my grace.
What is the Sanskrit word?
Mat prasadat.
Mat
Mat
prasadat.
prasadan bhava.
Very nice. Mat prasadat. As my prasad. Because he is doing the activities under my shelter. Okay. Otherwise, if he does the activities under my shelter and he gets the spiritual destination, then you can say he did everything. Isn't it? Doesn't it sound like that? He did the activities under my shelter, whatever, under my shelter, fine. But he did the activities. So he did it. And he got the highest destination. Isn't it? So isn't it appearing as if he did everything? Where is God? Okay, his shelter is there at the top. Fine, there is that. I'm trying to emphasize the point, mat prasadat. So then the Lord becomes happy. He becomes like a father, becomes happy with the child. And then he helps the child. That is the prasad. What is the prasad? When we offer food to, normally prasad means food, we say. Prasad kha rahe hain. We are eating prasad. What is prasad? We offer the food we have made.
Merci.
Yeah, we offer the food we have made. It may not be very tasty. Maybe we forgot to put salt in it. Or maybe we didn't, it was overcooked. Whatever you offer to the Lord, he's so happy that he sees, oh, this person has made it for me. When he eats it, it becomes prasad. And that is what we get back. So his blessing or his accepting our actions is the Lord's magic, or that step, that missing step. So the cause is the Lord's blessing or his acceptance of our actions. So always do your activities under my shelter. That's our job. it's up to us to do it with our consciousness of doing it with Bhagavan. Then God or Krishna accepts it, accepts these duties or activities, and blesses them. That becomes the prasad. Mat prasadat avapnoti. Then he gets it back. He achieves or he gets back, and by that prasad, one enters or one obtains the destination. So you can see that very important step here is God's action of his acceptance of our activities done with love and bhakti. And that bhakti had just been described in 55. So it is out of bhakti, 100% out of bhakti. And here also it says, Mad Vyapashrayaha, under my shelter. So that is all showing as bhakti. So please try to understand, this is describing bhakti in this verse. So as I said, what the devotee does and what is the result. Isn't that what we said? Activities or the consciousness, the activities or the consciousness of a devotee and the result. What is the result? The result is Shashvatam Padam Avyayam, the same result as what they were getting. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate and Brahma Bhuta Prasannatma. That was the same result as Shashvatam Padam Avyayam, isn't it? We can say that Brahma Bhuta is the same as Shashvatam Avyayam Padam, the eternal spiritual destination, Padam. All right. Okay. So we saw one factor, that he does activities under my shelter. What are other aspects of his consciousness? We will see 4 more aspects of his consciousness in 18.57. So B, I put it in red color, right? Yeah, so I'll put it in red color. B, C, D, and E. A we had covered here. Always do activities under my shelter. 4 more things will come. So B. So 18.57 is Chetasa sarva karmani mai sanyasya matparaha buddhi yogam upashritya matchitta satatam bhava. So each line is having one aspect of the consciousness of a pure devotee. So what is the other one? First one is Chetasah sarva karmani mai sanyasya. Mai sanyasya. So mai sanyasya means offer. Okay, it's okay. I'll write in red color. Mai sanyasya sarva karmani. So offer or give up. Sannyas. Sannyas means to give up. Offer or give up all activities and results, whatever comes, the actions as well as the results. To whom? Mai, me, to me. So mai sanyasya. Chetasa, with this intelligence, with this consciousness, you should do it. So that is another point. Matparaha. Matparaha, we have covered this word a few times before in Bhagavad Gita. Matparaha means what? That to consider. That is why that is there. Chetasa, with this chetana, with this consciousness, with this intelligence, to, or with this consideration. To consider, we can put it in 2 different ways or 2 different words. They mean the same thing, that to consider me to be the Supreme Lord. Or a more literal translation of mat paraha is to consider that I am the only goal worthy in this life, or I am the only worthy goal of life. Okay, not money, not car, not this, not that. Bhagavan Krishna is the only worthy goal, worth pursuing. That is the meaning of mat paraha. Then buddhi yogam upashritya. So taking shelter of buddhi yoga. And this buddhi yoga has been described in which verse most strongly in Bhagavad Gita? Anybody remembers?
10th chapter.
10th chapter, which verse? Or what is the verse?
Buddhi.
Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam
Tesham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam upasritya
yena mam upayanti te.
upayanti.
Yes, that is 10.10. Okay. So she's a Bhakti Shastri student, so that's why she remembers all these verses. You have to, this is one of the verses to be memorized. So that is, but in 10.10, Lord Krishna is describing that I give that buddhi yoga, you just use it. Just use it. So like a father, to help the child to do mathematics, he is doing very hard labor to do all the multiplication, division. What the father does, gives a calculator. Then he can do it fast. Now, I don't encourage calculator use in mathematics for children, but I'm just giving an example that, to do it faster or whatever, the father gives. The child simply has to use it. He doesn't have to know how the calculator works, what is the internal chip inside the calculator or whatever. He just uses it. Everything is given by the father. Even the buddhi yoga, intelligence is given by the father. So taking shelter of that buddhi yoga, buddhi yogam upashritya, mat chittah satatam bhava. Always remember me. Mat chittah satatam bhava. Mat chittah, keep me in your chitta. Or put your chitta. Chitta means your consciousness, your emotions. Chitta, there is a difference between chitta and mana. Okay. So typically chitta is the place of your emotions. Man is the place of your desires. These are technical terms I have read somewhere and learned from my teachers. What is the difference between chitta and mana? But again, no need to go into that. Typically, both are translated as mind. But mana is where desires arise. I want this, I want that. Chitta is where one's emotions or one's, emotions live. So putting your emotions, your consciousness in me. Always remember me. Mat chittah satatam bhava. Always remembering me. And mat chittah, there's another very sweet verse. What do the devotees do when they are in mat chittah? Is 10.9, just the previous verse. Mat chittah mat gatah pranah bodhayantah parasparam. So they associate with each other. And what do they do in that association? Kathayantascha mam nityam. They tell katha to each other of Krishna mam, kathayantascha mam nityam, and they enjoy like that. Tushyanti cha ramanti cha. So these are the 4 more things that they do. B, C, D, E, and we covered A here. So always doing activities under Krishna's shelter, giving up all those activities and the results back to Krishna, to consider that Krishna is the only worthy goal of life. And how to do all this? By making proper use of buddhi yoga that we have obtained from Krishna. And during this whole process, never forgetting Krishna, always remembering Krishna. So like this, a bhakta lives and does all his activities. Then, okay, are you following? Nod your head or yes, no, yes, okay, very good. Then 18.58 and a half. So half verse describes the result. Again, same result, but Lord Krishna will tell again. He wants to emphasize that this result is no different than the result obtained by the Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate people, the jivan mukta people, when they attain the Brahma Bhuta stage. Okay. So what is 18.58 and a half? Mad chittah sarva durgani mad prasadat tarishyasi. Again, mad prasadat is a very important word. By my prasad, mad chittah, like this in your mad chittah, like this, always this E. So by doing E, whatever this E was here, right? By doing E, mad chittah, sarva durgani. Durga means what? In spiritual textbooks, what is Durga?
Forts. Fortress or forts.
Yeah, that is one meaning of Durga. That is one meaning of Durga. Okay.
Here hurdles, we can think.
Hurdles, why hurdle? Why? Durga
By
means,
our Maya.
no, wait. Let me explain. Don't guess, no guesswork. Durga, another meaning is a jail. What is a fort? Either you can protect the bad guys from coming in and the good guys are inside. That is a fort, isn't it? Good guys are inside, the enemy is outside, isn't it? The bad guys are outside, isn't it? That's the usual meaning of fort. You have seen many forts in Rajasthan or whatever, correct? Another way to understand is the bad guys are inside and the good guys are outside. What does that make it? Where is it that bad guys are inside?
Jail.
A jail. So Durga has two meanings. Durga just means a enclosure to protect one from inside, from outside. Now it is up to the context whether the good guys are inside or the bad guys are inside. So it is like a jail or an impediment, you know. The people inside want to come out so that they can be free. Otherwise they are imprisoned. So that is the meaning of Durgani. Sarva Durgani Mat Prasadat Tarishyasi. Tarishyasi means you can cross. So you will overcome. So by doing E, you can overcome the boundary, we said, you know, the fence or the enclosure, the boundary of material world. That is the Sarva Durgani. Material world. That is why Mother Durga. Durga is the, she is the controller of the material world. She is the Mahamaya, or the controller of the material world, energy of Krishna, manifestation of the energy of Krishna in the material world, who is the supreme controller of the material world, is Mother Durga. So you can overcome the boundary of material world, Sarva Durgani Tarishyasi. So this is Tarishyasi, boundary of material world, Sarva Durgani. By how? By my prasad, or by my mercy or blessing, etc. Okay. So boundary of material world means what is the result? The result is spiritual world. What is outside the material world? What is outside the boundary of material world? Spiritual world, right? So what is being described here is the result of doing all these A, B, C, D, E. Are you following? By doing A, B, C, D, E, you will get to the spiritual world by crossing over the material world. So that is the meaning. Okay, so is 18 and a half, 58 and a half clear? Okay, so this is the, what is the 2.5 verses? What are they? The activities or consciousness of a pure devotee. Now, even if the devotee may not be, I just said earlier, the devotee may not be Shuddha Bhakta or a Kevala Bhakta. Pure devotee means Kevala or Shuddha Bhakta. But if he is mixed with some jnana or karma or dhyana, then slowly he becomes, whether in this lifetime, gradually, or, you know, few lifetimes, again he will get a human birth. Where is that mentioned? Human birth is guaranteed. It's not like after this human birth, you have to become cat and dog and earthworm and cockroach, and then you will become human. Where is it mentioned in Bhagavad Gita that direct human, done? Nobody remembers?
Chapter 6.
Chapter 6. Very nice. End of chapter 6. So one comes to the stage of a Shuddha Bhakta and then crosses the boundary of the material world. Okay, so that is 58 and a half. This was the essence. Action and consciousness of a pure devotee plus the destination, which is the spiritual world. Okay, now next 2.5 verses. And here there is no taking shelter of Krishna. And what is there? I will do on my own. I will do everything on my own. There is no bhakti. And it is all governed by, not by bhakti, by past conditioning, by one's svabhaav. Okay, so all this will be the consciousness. So it is a direct contrast with the previous 2.5. And what will be the result? What do you think will be the result? Spiritual world? What is the result? Yes, Prabhuji?
You will be lost.
No, more specific. Lost means where? Lost in the
Material world.
yeah. So
You will
will
be
be
you will stay in material world.
material world.
You will stay. The important word is stay in the material world. So that is what Lord Krishna essentially will be saying in the next 2.5 verses. So let us see the next 2.5. So next 18.58 and a half. This one is C and D. That second half. Okay. Atha chet tvam ahankaaran na shrosyasi vinankshasi. Atha eva means but, or else, or alternatively, chet, if you, chet tvam ahankaaran. Ahankar means I will do it. I don't need you, God. You go do your own thing. I will do my own thing. I don't need you. Right? So out of that ahankaaran na shrosyasi vinankshasi. So if you don't listen to me, what I am telling you, then you will be vinakshasi. Vinakshasi means you will be vinash. You will be destroyed. Destroyed in this sense doesn't mean that you will be destroyed. The soul is never destroyed. Destroyed means you will be stuck in the material world. Lord Krishna will say that in the next verse. Okay. So we will cover this one quickly. Yad ahankaaram ashritya na yotsya iti manyase mithyaisha vyasayaste prakritistvam niyokshati. So what will you do? That the translation by Srila Prabhupada is, if you do not act according to my direction and do not fight, then you will be falsely directed. By your nature, you will have to be engaged in warfare. So it is mithya. You will see the word mithya isha vyavasayaste. So you will engage vyavasayaste. You will engage your consciousness in a mithya. Mithya means in a false way. And everything here, the material consciousness, mithya means material consciousness. So at a certain level, it is a pretense or a mithya that I can do it on my own. You cannot get liberation on your own. So that is the main point. Here we get a sense that without God's bhakti, you cannot get liberation. This is a mithya. Some amount must be there. Tiny amount must be there. Otherwise, if one thinks by my jnana yoga, by my dhyana, I will get liberation, that is mithya. You cannot get it. So this is a proof in Bhagavad Gita of Lord's mercy to get any kind of liberation, however tiny it may be. Okay, and you will engage according to your own understanding, niyotsya iti manyase, that I will fight. I will not fight, and out of your own desire. That's what I want. Iti manyase, I want this. My mind is saying this. So that is 18.59. All right. I'm going through this little more quickly. And then 18.60. Svabhaav contd, out of your own conditioning. Svabhaav, where did we write conditioning? Yeah, based on your past conditioning. Svabhaav contd, my dear Arjuna, Kaunteya, son of Kunti, nibaddha svena karmana, that you will do the activities according to your nibaddha, your binding consciousness, the consciousness which is entangled in the past conditioning. With that consciousness, you will do your activities, not mad ashraya. Can you see the contrast? Here in the previous one, you are doing in the consciousness of Bhagavan. There you are doing it under the consciousness of nibaddha. Nibaddha of what? Svabhava. My past conditioning. You are doing the activities. As I have been doing in the past, so I will do in the future. In the past, I got success. Some success. You have some remembrance of success in the past. If I do this, so you want to repeat your material formulas. You don't want to surrender to Bhagavan. We want to repeat our material formulas that we have, that have given us some limited success at some point in the past. And we try to use them again and again and again. They will lead to limited success and some failure. It will be a mixture of success and failure. That is a illusion. Kartum na ichhasi yan mohat. That if you do like this, out of illusion, mohat, that is an illusion that by, I will somehow get the highest result. Karishyasya avasho apitat. Then you will be, compelled. You will just keep getting the same kind of result again and again and again. So under illusion, you are now, under illusion, you are now declining to act according to my direction. But compelled by the work born of your own nature, you will act all the same, O son of Kunti. Okay, so that was 18.60, that you will act according to your own conditioning, your past conditioning. And it is an illusion that it will lead to a permanent result. It will lead to the same temporary result. And what will be the end result? It will be vinakshasi. You will be destroyed, which means that you will stay in the material world. You will not go to the spiritual world. Okay, so those were the next 2.5 verses. Okay, any questions? So this is material consciousness. Somebody is unmuted. You can mute if you are not speaking. Okay. No, they will keep going forward. We'll cover 2 more verses, very important verses. So, by the way, now, everything that we have covered so far, till this point, is guhya jnana. What is known as the confidential knowledge. Okay. And primarily what this is referring to is the 18.51 to 18.54. This was the Brahman realization. Brahma Bhuyaya Kalpate and Brahma Bhuta. So this is the Brahman realization. Then Lord Krishna did cover that what can be done after that. What happens after Brahman realization is what Lord covered from 18.55 to 18.60. After Brahman realization. or till I would say 18.58 and a half. He covered you can do bhakti like this. You can know me by bhakti and how to do bhakti. Whether you do it after Brahman realization or before, it's the same process. So after Brahman realization, we can say that this was covered, and the contrary was also covered in the next 2.5 verses. So this is confidential knowledge or guhya gyan about Brahman realization. Okay, we will see this. This is very important because Lord Krishna will talk about it in the next few verses. That I have given you the guhya gyan, guhya tara gyan. Now listen, guhya tama means the most confidential or the most important. Okay. So this is guhya gyan. So please keep that in mind. This one, Brahman realization. 18.51 to 18.54. Okay. Now what is going to come is guhya tara jnana. Guhya tara means more confidential. This word tara means more. Guhya tara, more confidential. Guhya just means confidential. Guhya tara means more confidential knowledge. So what is this more confidential knowledge? 18.61 to 18.62. Okay. So what is this more confidential knowledge? So Lord Krishna is going to say that he has been saying mad ashraya, isn't it? Take my shelter. So who is that my shelter? Okay. Whose shelter? My shelter. Yes. So in this case, my shelter, he is referring to Paramatma. That my shelter could mean Paramatma or it could mean Bhagavan. This is the most confidential. It will come in 18.65 and 66. But right now, 18.61 and 62 is talking about Paramatma. So we will see Paramatma, and then I think time will be up and we will stop. So 18.61 and 18.62, Lord Krishna is going to talk about his expansion. Paramatma is Lord Krishna's expansion into the material world. Okay, in all living entities, as Kshirodakshai Vishnu, in every universe as Garbhodakshai Vishnu, and in the material world itself as Karnodakshai Vishnu. So these are known as the three Purusha avatars. So the Lord expands into the entire material world as Paramatma. So Karnodakshai Vishnu is known as the Paramatma of the entire world, not just world, entire material creation. Material creation. Garbhodakshai Vishnu is that Karnodakshai Vishnu who expands into each universe. And that is the Garbhodakshai Vishnu. And then that Garbhodakshai Vishnu expands into the heart of all living entities, known as Kshirodakshai Vishnu, or whom we normally call as Paramatma, living in our heart. Okay. So while one is in the material world, and one does not have this most confidential knowledge of Bhagavan, one can take ashraya of Paramatma. So that ashraya which was mentioned in the 2.5 verses, mad ashraya, a lower level of ashraya is to take ashraya of Paramatma. So that is what is going to be said in 18.62. So first 18.61, who is Paramatma? And then 18.62 would be to take shelter of that Paramatma. These two aspects will be covered. So 18.61, very important. Who is Paramatma? Ishvarah sarva bhutanam hriddeshe Arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantra rudhani mayaya. So Ishvarah sarva bhutanam. Who is Paramatma? He is the Lord of all living entities, sarva bhutanam. Isn't it? So Paramatma is the Ishwar of the living, all the living entities. Hriddeshe, I will just move this one down, 18.62. I will move it down here. Okay. So first, he is the Lord, Ishwarah Sarvabhutanam. Hriddeshe. Now Lord Krishna has not said Hridaye Arjuna Tishtati, inside the heart. He is saying Hriddeshe, in the region of the heart. Desh means the location. So he is not like inside the heart, because heart is material. Even you can say the location also is material, whether it is the heart or the location of the heart, both are at a material plane. Paramatma is spiritual. But what the Lord is saying is that Hriddeshe, and in the location of the heart or the region of the heart, Hriddeshe Arjuna Tishtati. He is sitting. So we can say he is sitting in the location of the heart, wherever the heart is located. Brahmayan sarva bhutani. And he is giving the life force, Brahmayan, the energy or the ability for the living entities to move around, to be active. So he is the life-giving force to all living entities. Okay. And also to the jiva itself, to the jivatma, to the individual living entity itself. In 7.7, Lord Krishna says, what is 7.7? Mattah parataram na anyat kinchit asti dhananjaya. There is absolutely nothing which is, existing on its own. What is the next line? Mattah parataram na anyat kinchit asti dhananjaya.
Mayi sarva bhuta. Mayi sarva midam proktam.
Maya sarva idam
manigana
proktam sutre manigana iva. So on me, everything is resting, which means the jiva's existence, the jiva, the living entity, the soul. We have two in the heart, right? The jiva and the Paramatma. So even the jivatma depends on the existence of the Paramatma. If there is no Paramatma, jivatma cannot exist on its own. Okay, sutre manigana iva, like the thread is supporting all the money, all the pearls. So the Paramatma is supporting everything, including the jiva. So he is the life-giving force, life-giving force to all the living entities, including the jiva. And yantra rudhani mayaya. And this jiva is then moving around on this body of material body, mayaya, which is just a machine. Yantra means machine. Life-giving force to all living entities. And these living entities are present in a machine made of matter. Matter means Maya. In this context, Maya is matter. So in this machine called the body, i.e. body. Yantra rudhani. Rudhani means inside. Okay. So that is Paramatma. So Paramatma is what? Essentially, Paramatma is the life-giving force of all living entities. Without Paramatma, the living entity could not exist on its own. Paramatma is sustaining all living entities. Okay? Sarva Bhutana. He is the Supreme Lord of all living entities. Now, therefore, what should the living entities do? Therefore, what should living entities do? They should, answer is, take shelter of Paramatma, which is exactly the same thing we wrote here. Take shelter of Paramatma. Okay. So, who is that Mad Ashraya? Taking shelter of whom? The intermediate understanding, those who cannot take full shelter of Bhagwan. That will come later in the guhyatama jnana, that which says that sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam raja, or man manah bhavamad bhakto. So become my pure devotee with your full mind, man manah. So that will be the Bhagwan realization, or the topmost one. But if one cannot do that, then one should take shelter of Paramatma. So that is the next verse, taking shelter of Paramatma. Tameva sharanam gaccha. Sharanam means what? Shelter. Gaccha means take, or to go and take. Tameva, that Paramatma, because he's an expansion. Paramatma is an expansion of Krishna. Krishna always uses the word third person term for Paramatma because he wants to keep it different. The grammar need to be different for himself. Mai, mama, he's referring to himself. Okay. So whenever he is referring to Paramatma, he is referring to Paramatma in the third person term to draw that distinction. Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata. Sarva bhavena. So there has to be some bhava. There has to be some bhakti. Acharyas have also explained this as a bhava bhakti. Start with that bhava, that of some bhakti. There is bhakti in bhava. Sarva bhavena bharata. So tameva sharanam gaccha, take shelter of that. Of that Paramatma. And that means in the third person tense. Third tense, we say, no? First tense, second tense, third tense. Right? ऐसे बोलते हैं ना? Third tense.
First person, second person, third person.
And there's the tense. Tense also has.
No,
right?
it is not tense. It is not tense.
Not tense. Okay, fine. I'm forgetting my grammar. Anyway, third person, whatever. So take shelter of that Paramatma. Tameva sharanam gaccha. With bhava. With bhava, it is a indicator of some bhakti. Some little amount of bhakti. Sarva bhavena bharata. Tat prasadat param shantim. So there is an aspect of prasad here also. So Paramatma does prasad, gives prasad. Tat prasadat. Whose prasadat? Not Mayi prasadat. What was the word that was used by Lord Krishna in previous verse? Let us check it out. In 18.56, what is the word? Who can tell me 18? Who has the book? What is the counterpart of tat prasadat?
Mat prasadat वापस होते हैं.
Mat prasadat.
Mat prasadat.
So, tat prasadat and mat prasadat. You see the difference?
Paramatma and Bhagwan.
Paramatma and Bhagwan. Very nice. So that is the difference that is being shown here by Lord Krishna. Tat prasadat. So where is that? 62. Tat prasadat param shantim sthanan prapsyasi shashvatam. So you still get the eternal destination. You still get the eternal destination. So C is by his, which means Paramatma's mercy or blessing, right? Prasadat. Tat prasadat param shantim. You will get full peace or we say Shantim means sthanam prapsasi shashvatam, and attain
Transcendental peace.
supreme destination. Sthan means like padam. Padam, sthanam means destination. So it is not just your peace, but also you get that. So which means that they get the Vaikuntha destination. Okay. They get Vaikuntha destination, but they are not near the Lord. So they get salokya, or like sarupya, I'm getting confused here, but they get the Vaikuntha destination. It's beyond the Brahman. They go to the Vaikuntha, sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam. Okay. So they go to the Vaikuntha destination. So that is Paramatma realization. So this is Paramatma realization. What has been described in 18.61 and 18.62, and this is guhya tara jnana. We will cover now 63, very, very, very important verse next time. So next class is arguably going to be the most important class of the whole series. Entire 1.5 years or 2 years that we have been discussing. Next class is the most important because we will discuss some of the most important verses of Bhagavad Gita. The entire essence of Bhagavad Gita is there in this. 63, Lord Krishna will say that this is the most confidential. Or he will say not that he will say in 64. This is most confidential, and who can understand most confidential? My friend can understand. And Lord Krishna gives that knowledge to a friend. So that is 64. 63, Lord Krishna will say, this I have told you guhyat and guhyataram. So he will say, iti te jnanam akyatam. This jnana is guhyat guhyataram. So this is guhya jnana and guhyataram jnana. What he has given so far, maya, I have given you. And then he will say, now you do as you please. Very famous. Yad ichhasi tatha kuru. Do as you please. He's giving full choice, free will to Arjuna. He's not forcing Arjuna to choose one or the other. He's giving free choice, not forced choice, but free choice. He's giving recommendation. He's giving a recommendation, but he is saying that whatever now you decide, I'm not going to challenge it. I'm not going to persuade you anymore. I have given you all the understanding. I have answered all your questions. Now you freely choose. So that is this. Vimrishya itad asheshena. Think about this carefully. Asheshena. Fully think about it carefully. All the knowledge I have given you. Yad ichhasi tatha kuru. And then he will say, Sarva guhyatayam bhuyaha. Now I will tell you, Sarva guhyatamam. Not only guhyatamam itself would have been enough. I'm going a little fast. We'll cover this again. Sarva guhyatamam. So guhyatamam itself would have been enough. He's adding another adjective. Sarva means the topmost confidential. Most confidential itself conveys the meaning. What is the, you can say topmost confidential. In Intel, we have these documents. We have confidential document, then we have top secret, then we have topmost secret. Till today, I have not figured out what is the difference between top secret and topmost secret. But they have that for some
security clearance.
Security clearance, yeah, whatever. But I have never understood what is the difference between the two. When we just we just feel that, oh, this is very, very nice work, we will call it topmost secret. We will say, oh, somebody else has done it, oh, we will just call it confidential because he has done it. All this. I'm just joking, but like that. I mean, there's no much but you can emphasize, you can see Lord Krishna's emphasis. Sarva guhyatamam bhuyah shruno me paramam vachaha. Again he is saying paramam vachaha, my most important vachan. My most important words are coming now. And then what he's saying, Ishto asi me dridhamiti. You are my very, very dridha, close friend. Tato vakshyami te hitam. So I'm telling you for your benefit. So all these, each word here is very, very important. We will go over it again. But the next class is the most important class of whole series. Please don't miss. And then come the two most important verses, like Lord Krishna himself is saying, Paramam Vachaha and Sarva Guhyatamam. All those things he's saying, then he will speak those two verses, which are the most important. Manmanaha bhakto madhya jivam namaskuru maam eva ishyasi satyam te pratijane prayosi me, and sarva dharman parityajya maam ekam sharanam vraja aham tvam sarva papebhyo mokshashyami ma shuchaha. So these four verses, 18.63 to 18.66, are the most important verses of entire Bhagavad Gita. Actually, 18.65 and 18.66 are the most important, but 18.63 and 18.64 convey the importance. Oh, I'm not sharing my screen, sorry. Yeah, so I was just saying that 18.63 to 18.66 are the most important verses of Bhagavad Gita, but basically these two are the most important, but these two are conveying the fact that these two are the most important. So that makes it important as well. Okay. One can ask, I can say 18.65 and 18.66 are the most important. Somebody can say, who are you? Why should I believe you that these two are most important? I say some other two verses are most important. Why should I take your word? So then these two become most important. You say, don't take my word. Krishna himself, the author of Bhagavad Gita himself, is saying that these two are the most important. So these basically convey the importance. I have seen some YouTube videos. You can, I don't recommend, but some videos, top 50 verses or top 50 most important verses of Bhagavad Gita. So I said, okay, let us see what are the 50 most important. There is a video like that. Some other, sampradaya or no sampradaya. These two are not even there in that list of 50. How is that possible? Krishna himself is saying, Paramam Shrinu me Paramam Vachaha. Listen to my most important words. And then when somebody else is selecting top 50 most important verses, these two are not there. How does that make sense? Then that person could ask, oh, this is my selection. I selected 50 from Bhagavad Gita. So, okay, you have selected 50, but what about the author? What about his emphasis or his choice, what he thinks is the most important? Then you can write your own Bhagavad Gita. Why you have to use Krishna's Bhagavad Gita? Write your own nonsense. So many people write their own novels, fiction, books. What do you call that? Atomic Habits. So many self-help books are there. You can say each of them is a Bhagavad Gita in its own right. 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. One can say, yes, I am follower of 7 Habits book. That's fine. But if you are using Bhagavad Gita, then you must follow the author's nomenclature of what is more important and what is less important. You are trying to use the brand name of Bhagavad Gita. Oh, Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavad Gita. And then you are putting your own agenda, hidden agenda behind it. That is called cheating. So all this, that's what makes these two verses important. Lord Krishna is, he predicted, he knew there will be people like this who will say important verses and then they will omit the important verses. So he put it in the Bhagavad Gita itself that these are the important verses, so that nobody can cheat. Or if anybody cheats, at least it can be discovered. The cheating can be proved or can be uncovered. So that is what makes these 4 to be the very important verses of Bhagavad Gita. And then following also, there are very important verses. So we will cover all those. So today, so I think 2 more classes and we will be done, right? Next class, we should cover these 4, plus maybe 1 or 2 more. And then final class, we will finish. So I think 2 more classes, we will be done. So, yeah. So please think about what you want to do afterwards. After the Bhagavad Gita class is over. And please engage in your Krishna Bhakti very seriously. You should engage after having gone through this whole course of Bhagavad Gita. And many ways of doing Bhakti are to continue to read Bhagavad Gita again and again. It is very complex. I agree, it is not easy. I have myself, every time I read it, I get new and deeper understanding. Read Srimad Bhagavatam. Do some japa. It is your private connection with Krishna Naam. So 15 minutes, if you are not doing anything, start with 15 minutes of japa, which means 2 malas of 108 beads, 108 tulsi beads are there. So it is recommended you do it on tulsi. And do some, kirtan, go to the temple, not as a, visitor, not as like a tourist place, or just to, meet with people, socialize. Hi, how are you? And, which movie did you see last week? Not like that. With bhava, associate with the devotees,
What
see the
happened?
Lord. So do all
What
these
happened?
activities. Do all these activities, and very
Some
soon.
problem with the audio.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes, yes, Prabhuji.
Okay.
I can hear you well.
Okay. So Ramakant Prabhu, some problem on your end.
Yeah.
I will mute him. Okay. So yeah. So like this, you must lead your life. Okay. Are there any questions?
Prabhuji, when already in 1863, Bhagavan says, Itte jnanam akyatam guhyat guhitaram maya. And then he said that yatechas tatha kuru. Then it was a final.
So I will.
It was final.
Yeah, I will explain this, why he says now you do next time, because we did not cover 18.63 today. Okay. Short answer is Lord Krishna was thinking that Arjuna is very smart student and he will understand what to do, but he is saying that out of 2 reasons, out of great compassion, that maybe he will make the wrong choice. He's such a loving father. He wants to give the answer to the student. He wants the student to get 100% marks. He still wants the student to write the answer, but he's telling the answer, beta, here is the answer, you write it. If the student is completely rebellious, not only a fool, a foolish student, for a foolish student, he's telling the answer. He will say, okay, teacher is telling the answer, just copy it, write it down, don't think. We say, na, apna dimag ghar pe rakho. Kindly mute yourself, somebody. Okay, so we say, no, keep your brain aside, just write it. But then it becomes rebellious. I will write the opposite of what I am being told. So for such a rebellious student, Lord Krishna is telling, here is the answer, just write it. Now, only if you are rebellious, then you will not choose that. Otherwise, however foolish you are bound to get 100%. That is the answer.
It's okay, bro. It's okay. We'll cover it.
But I hope I gave the brief essence of the answer. Okay. Bhakti to Krishna and making the right choice really doesn't depend on us. That's why Krishna says, Dadami buddhi yogam tam. So what is the best way to give buddhi is to tell the right answer itself. Isn't it? That is the best way to make the student pass the exam. Just give the right answer. Okay. So that is the reason why he still says, you make the choice, but he goes on for 3 more verses, 64, 65, 66. Okay. Then there was one question by Kirubak Prabhu. Does one's svabhaav come from previous life or only from the past of or current life? No, it is an accumulation of many previous lives. That's how our svabhaav gets deeper and deeper, deepened. Okay, and that svabhaav carries along with the soul, that conditioning carries along in the subtle body, in the mind, intelligence, and ahankar, false ego. Man, buddhi, ahankar, they carry the soul from one body to another. And there the remnants, some impressions, not all the details, but some impressions carry forward into the next life. Okay.
Thank you.
That's the answer to the question. Okay, anything else? All right, thank you so much for continuing so far. 2 more classes and we will be done with this long double Excel series of Bhagavad Gita. We started the faster series. We are in 7th chapter already in that. So please join that. It is beneficial. It happens on Sunday. For India people, it happens on Monday morning, if possible. Otherwise, everything is on YouTube. For those who are interested in doing more deeper study of Bhagavad Gita and other books, at some point in the future, you can consider doing Bhakti Shastri course. And so many opportunities. There are so many opportunities. It doesn't mean you have to do everything. Like in a university, there are all the departments, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. It doesn't mean that a student has to become, graduate of all the departments. Okay, to be called a graduate or to be called a PhD, any one department is enough. Okay, so but somehow keep making progress. Okay, don't drop out of the university. That is the point. Graduate. Okay, become a bhakta. All right. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Bhagavad Gita
Ki jai.
ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you, Prabhuji.
Thank you,
Hare Krishna,
Prabhuji. Hare
Prabhuji.
Krishna. Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare Krishna.